It's Tom Hannon here from thisdaynbaseball.com. I know it's been a while since we put out a new episode on the podcast, so I just wanted to put this out there and tell everybody what was going on, that we actually have created a community at outside of thisdaynbaseball.com at vintagebaseballreflections.com. And that community has over 900 games where you could listen to, and they date back all the way to Babe Ruth in 1934 to 1974. So you can go from Babe Ruth to Reggie Jackson and all the famous players and World Series and All-Star games in between. It's just a treasure chest of a place to listen to old-time baseball games. And on top of the old-time baseball games, there is a tremendous amount of interviews. There's over 2,000 hours worth of interviews that we've been able to put together so far. And they're anything from Jackie Robinson when he had his own show, or it's the Babe Ruth show, or Bob Feller show, and Don Drysdale had a show. And then there's these amazing 5-minute clips from Top Sports, and so many others. I can't list them all. There's just so many. There literally are 2,000 hours worth of interviews. And then there's old-time commercials. If you like the old-time commercials, we have over 150 old-time commercials that you can listen to as well, which is just they bring a chuckle to me every time I listen to one of them. It's especially like Rice-A-Roni and there's Flintstones. It's just so many that really bring you back in time. So that's over at vintagebaseballreflections.com. Now on the podcast, I'm going to be doing a series of shows. There's going to be and this is from a book that I found. I love to dive into old baseball books. So I found this really cool book called The Greatest Team of All Time. And the book was written by Nick Osella and Donald Dewey. I thought it was just going to be another book about the greatest teams of all time from the author's point of view. And that's fine. I love reading those books. I have a stack of them, and I like to refer to those books all the time. Some people do it with analytics. Some people do it just on opinion. Rob Nyer, with his book with the greatest lineups of all time. I love that book, and it's dog-eared, and I read it all the time. But, I found this book, and this book was published in 1994. And the difference is this book is the players saying who their all-time greatest team would be. And I found that incredibly interesting. And I thought, this is an old book. Even though it was published in 94, I can tell you it looks like it was published in 1950. I thought this would be a really cool thing to give you guys. So I'm going to start with the A's and work my all the way to early win. There's close to 150 different players who gave their all-time team. There was a few rules, so I just want to tell you up front what the rules were that they gave the players. And the rules were simple, that they had to play with the player. They had to be somebody from their era and somebody that they played with. So what you're going to see, as we go through this, if somebody is a National League player, their list is going to be slanted to the National League. Somebody who was an American League player, they're going to be slanted to the American League. Of course, there are some players that played in both leagues, although that wasn't as prevalent, in the 50s and 60s as it is now. And one of the things, too, to keep in mind is this fact collecting that these guys did actually started before they were even professional sports writers. They would write letters to Hall of Famers and ask them if they would give them their all-time team. So it's really cool. And of course, it progressed through to some of these interviews were done on the phone, some were done in person, and right up until the end, they were done through through a letter writing campaign. It's a really interesting look at what the players thought. Now, this was a team, not just somebody who would say it's the all-time greatest team, but it's the team, if they had to win one game, this is the team that they would put together. The players also add some insights and a few things that they add in about about some players who aren't on the list, but maybe who were the toughest to face, the toughest to get out. It's really some fun insight. So again, the book is called The Greatest Team of All Time, the best I ever saw. And so let's get started with Hank Aaron. He is one of the most prolific hitters of all time. Aaron withstood tremendous pressure to break Babe Ruth's record in 1974. And just as a side note, I did a podcast about that in full detail, and the story is just amazing when you think about Aaron had to have his own assistant just to handle his mail because he was getting a room full of mail every day. And it wasn't all positive, but that was what happened. So I did a full podcast on that. I'm going to link in the show notes to that. But one of the things about Aaron is he was incredibly consistent over his 23-year career. And when you just look at the numbers, 25-time All-Star, 18 consecutive seasons with 20-plus home runs, 15 seasons, 100-plus runs scored, 14 seasons, he hit over 300, 11 seasons, 100-plus RBIs, 3 Gold Gloves, 2 batting titles, 1957 MVP, and also in 57, the Braves won the World Championship. They had a rematch against the Yankees in 58 and lost, and then they played the Dodgers who was going to go to the World Series in 1959. I know it's technically not called a playoff series, but it was a 2-game playoff series. And of course, Aaron was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1982. It's one of the reasons why Aaron gets overlooked occasionally because he was just so darn consistent. One of the best players of all time. And here is his all-time team. In today's edition of The Best I Ever Saw, we review Hank Aaron's all-time team. Given his career, it's hardly surprising that Aaron contends that there just wasn't a pitcher I felt I could never get a hit off. Nevertheless, he concedes that Juan Marichal and Don Drysdale rivaled Bob Gibson as mound problems. Hard-throwing right-handers who brushed you back were always tough. Some people remember that I hit more home runs off Drysdale than any other player did, but there were plenty of other bats where he got me as well. Now, I want to give you a little color on the Don Drysdale-Hank Aaron matchup. The two faced each other 249 times. Drysdale, throughout his career, only allowed hitters to have a 645 OPS, but Aaron was a real exception to that rule. Aaron had a 925 OPS versus Drysdale. He hit 17 career home runs. His batting average was a little bit lower, at 267, but he had 345 on base percentage and a 579 slugging. Drysdale was just one of 13 Hall of Fame pitchers Aaron had faced at least 25 times in his career. And one of Don Drysdale's teammates, Sandy Koufax, was victimized quite often by Aaron. In the 130 plate appearances against Koufax, he had a 1077 OPS. And another lefty, not a teammate of Drysdale, Steve Carlton, didn't fare too well against Aaron either. In the 81 plate appearances Aaron had against Carlton, he had a 1025 OPS. His toughest call was for catcher. He was healthy. There was nobody better than Roy Campanella as both a catcher and a hitter. But I played with Del Crandall a long time, and he was a match for anybody defensively. Aaron's all-time team in the outfield, Stan Musial, Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, going around the horn, Eddie Matthews, Ernie Banks, Jackie Robinson, Gil Hodges. In the battery, Bob Gibson right-handed, Sandy Koufax left-handed, thrown to Roy Campanella. I hope you enjoyed Hank Aaron's all-time team there. Now, here are some really cool treats that you can find at vintagebaseballreflections.com. You can find the 1959 playoff series against the Braves and the Dodgers. You can find Aaron facing Sandy Koufax on May 5th, 1957 at Ebbets Field. Of course, you can find the full 57 and 58 World Series. You can also find the 1969 National League Championship Series between the Braves and the Mets. Those are just a few of over 900 different baseball games you can listen to on vintagebaseballreflections.com. Now, in the show notes, we've got some specials, which links to some special audio, which is Vince Scully calling 7:15, Bob Gibson, his 17 strikeout game in the 1968 World Series, Roy Campanella's final home run at Ebbets Field, Willie Mays' 4-home-run game, and a Stan Musial's walk-off home run in the All-Star game. So these are just, and check out those show notes because there's a ton of links in there to these players, to the audio, and to vintagebaseballreflections.com. I'd love to get your feedback. You can leave me a review, or you can email directly at tom@thisdayinbaseball.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you think about the show, and vintagebaseballreflections.com as well. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you at the ballpark. Look for those starting right away. We're going to start with Henry Aaron, of course, because he's number one on the he's number one of the baseball encyclopedia, and we're going to give his best team of all time. So look for that coming up shortly here, and I hope you enjoy it. And please, go to check out vintagebaseballreflections.com. You can have a free trial. There's a bunch of free content there that you can listen to. All the interviews are free. You can just log right on and listen to. And one of the reasons I did this for, and sure, you can find some of this stuff all over the internet, but you can't always find it in one place. And really, what I'm trying to do here is give the baseball fan one place to find this stuff, so that they don't have to. So head on. So I hope you give Vintage Baseball Reflections a try. You can head on over there. There's a couple of different options for you. You can join. There's a subscription. There's also free content. There's tons of free content. There's, like I said, there's 2,000 hours of free content over there. Plus, there's all the games, All-Star games, World Series. It's really a plethora of baseball audio that you can get lost in. So again, vintagebaseballreflections.com, and then look for the best I ever saw coming out real soon. Thanks.